Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel Stewart Paintings. On today's acrylic painting tutorial we're going to paint this gorgeous landscape of an autumn road. I'm going to teach you how to use colour to create depths and distance in the painting very easily, how to use certain types of brushes to create texture, to create autumn leaves and trees, how to use again different types of brushes to create realism and fine detail on your work, and then how to paint a road and how to paint realistic mountains and autumn trees so you can paint this gorgeous autumn road landscape. So let's get into it. So a nice easy tutorial today. You're going to need the following colours. They are titanium white, cad yellow, cad orange, cad red, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, sap green, chromium oxide green, raw sienna, raw umber and warm grey. Now I've got a little canvas that I've coloured in raw sienna and I've used pencil to create an outline. We're going to have the sky right off into the distance, which we're just going to have an easy sky. We're going to have a lovely mountain to captivate the viewer. We're going to have a pushback bank of autumn trees just here that we're going to use colour to push back. And then we're going to have a nearer bank where we're going to use dark colours to bring it forward and a nice road. So if you'd like to pause the video and copy down the outline, feel free to do so. Now today's video is actually sponsored by Zen Art Supplies and I am going to use their miniature brushes, which are fantastic. Anyone who knows me knows I am obsessed with Zen. I love things like the philosophy of ancient Zen and people like Alan Watts, and they come in this gorgeous carry case, very traditional carry case, and when you open it up you get 12 fantastic miniature brushes. They are absolutely fantastic, super high quality with lots of different brush ends with really fine detailed bristles. The quality is fantastic, so these are how they come. We're going to use them today for things like the trees, all the things like branches. A lot of people ask me what brushes I use, so if you want to find out anything about the supplies I use and you want to buy a set of these Zen Art Supply miniature brushes, they are in the description block below the video. So let's get started on the tutorial. Now I'm just going to use a big brush. I'm not going to use one of my fancy new brushes. I'm just going to use a really scruffy brush just to block in the painting. And all I'm doing is getting some white and some cerulean blue. Now just be aware, acrylics are really water based. So if you've painted your canvas raw sienna, you don't have to, by the way, I just always do, you will see a little bit of it shine through. So if you've got too much water on your brush, you will notice that. So you can always do what I'm just going to do now and thicken up your paint by using lots and lots of white and just a little bit of cerulean blue. You should get a pastel blue, and by having very thick paint you can just blob the paint on, look like so. And we just want to create a really nice bright blue sky. And I'm just going to fast forward it now because all I'm doing is just blocking in an area. As I say, if you get any streaks or anything, dry your work and give it a second coat of paint and it will remove them. And don't worry if you go over your outline, we're going to cover that up anyway. Now I'm going to swap over to one of my fancy new Zen Art Supplies miniature brushes here, these fine art ones, and I'm going to use an angle brush which kind of got like a marker pen sort of end with its bristles. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mix some white into our background sky, and I'm just going to create an off-white because it's still got a hint of that blue. And with the nib of the brush I'm just going to create some really wispy clouds. Now these are going to be really fine clouds, you hardly notice them. So by just using a lighter shade of that pastel white and blue, I'm just going to create some fluffy clouds. Now I don't want to create big chunky white clouds because I want to push the sky really far back. I want it really nice and sort of create depths in the painting. So I don't want really blocky clouds. So this brush is absolutely perfect. It's really smooth. I can just create some fine detail. I've not really got hardly any water on my brush. I'm just sort of rubbing the brush against the texture of the canvas. And I'm just creating little imprints of soft clouds. Now again, because acrylics are water based, sometimes look, when you lay the paint, it looks quite vivid and it looks quite that it sticks out, but as it dries, it absorbs the color underneath, and what happens is it dries a bit faint. So if you do get clouds that you can barely see, you can always go over the top with just the same color paint. So just give it 2 coats of paint, but we really do want them to be wispy and really far off into the distance. It just pushes that sky back, and then when we add our mountain, which I'm going to teach you how to do in a minute, we're going to push this into the distance, and it will look really far off and really, really pretty. So look, you barely notice them, just really nice wispy clouds. Take your time. So just fading off into the distance. And these brushes are fantastic. They're so soft, they're so lovely. It's like having a really lovely sort of marker pen. So you can just use it really, really easily. So look, let's have a big one here. So if I zoom out for you, it says just get some more white and some of that cerulean blue. Just so it's a little bit off-white, so there's not so much of a jump that it's real bright. Let's have a big one here. And can you see the ones on the left, they're starting to fade. So look, even though this one on the right looks brighter, all it is because the paint is wet. But the ones on the left, because the acrylics dry very quick, they're already starting to fade out. So if you do find that they are too faint, that you can barely see them, you can always, as I say, just add a second coat of paint. So we're going to keep with the same brush, we're just going to clean her, and we're going to get some ultramarine blue, and we're going to block in our mountain. So this brush is fantastic for creating sharp edges, so we're going to use this for our mountain. So we're going to get some Cad red and add it to our ultramarine blue to create a purple colour. So adding red to blue will create a little hum of purple. We're going to add lots of white to make it more pastel and grey. So can you see it's turning into a sort of a purpley blue grey. And what that's going to do, we're going to create a sort of pastel colour to make it look like this mountain is far off into the distance. Now we're going to use a colour called warm grey, which is this colour. You can buy it in tubes, but you can also make it. You can get black, orange and lots of white, and you can make that colour. So black, lots and lots of white and a tad of orange, and you should get warm grey. We're going to just add that into our pastel purpley blue, and it's going to make a really lovely bluey grey colour. And this is going to be our coat for our mountain. So the reason we create a pastel colour is because it's going to push this mountain far off into the distance. Now this brush, as I say, because it's got sort of a sharp marker, almost like, oops, I've got a little hair on my canvas, let's get that off. It's got an almost sort of marker sort of end. It's really, really lovely, this angle brush. We can create really sharp edges. So on a mountain, you want the edges to be not really, really square. You want to be quite bobbly. And look, you can also, when you're blocking in things, I'm going to cover in this area of tree just a little bit. So when we put the tree over the top, we've still got a little bit of the mountain showing. So there we go. So if I zoom in so you can see, I'm going to add a tiny bit of cerulean blue to the mix, because some of that sky colour, which is cerulean blue and white, will be shining down onto those mountains. So by just adding a little bit of the same colour, you can kind of match the light. So let's just add a little bit of cerulean blue. And again, I'm just going to fast forward. All I'm doing is blocking in the colour. As I say, this brush is fantastic for creating straight lines. So it's really, really good for creating sharp edges for things like mountains. If you're painting anything like buildings. So just blocking her in. And don't worry if you get any streaks. So some when it dries, I've got some little brush marks and streaks in my mountain. That actually looks quite cool on a mountain because it kind of looks like texture. So look, you can see where there's little bits of the canvas showing through. Don't worry, we're going to put some highlights on our mountain and it'll kind of look like texture. So don't worry if it's not completely all solid as one colour. So there we go. So we've got this blocked in pushback mountain that we've used this lovely blue. And now we're just going to use a slightly darker bluey grey for these trees, this tree line, to bring it a little bit forward. Now again, I'm going to swap to a more scruffy brush just because I'm going to use a larger brush rather than a fine detail brush because this area is a lot bigger. And all I'm doing is I'm mixing a darker shade of the same colour. So I'm getting our ultramarine blue, some red, some of that warm grey to make a darker version. I'm still going to add a little bit of white, but just not as much. So we just want this a tad darker. We'll see. Oops, I think I put too much white. I think that'll be too similar. We'll try it out on our canvas and then we'll see. So let's see if it's, I think that's too similar. Yeah, it's almost the same, isn't it? So I think we're going to have to darken her up. So there's no bother. The great thing about painting, look, you can just paint over something or you can just change it. So we're just going to add more ultramarine blue and it should make it darker. There we go. Cool. And again, look, I'm just going to block her in. But what we should have is, because it's a slightly darker shade, look, can you see it's created a division between the two areas? So by just having a completely darker shade of blue, it's just created that that mountain looks further back and this tree line looks closer to the viewer. So again, I'm just going to fast forward it a little bit just while we block it in. There's nothing technical. Now, Zen Art Supplies do bigger brushes. You can find them, as I say, in the description box below. I'm just using a scruffy brush because it's just blocking in one solid colour. But look, you can see the definition here. And as I say, I'm just going to speed up the video and just block it in. But at home, if you want to pause the video, take your time. Don't rush like me. I'm just fast forwarding it for the sake of editing. So there we go, all blocked in. And all we're doing, we're using these colours as a base. So when we put the highlights over the top, it will make it look much more realistic. Now this bank is nearer, so we're just going to do the same trick again. We're just going to make her slightly darker. So we're going to get some raw umber brown, which is a dark brown. And we're going to get some ultramarine blue. And this should create a sort of almost black colour. Can you see that? It's very, very dark. So ultramarine blue and raw umber brown. And we're going to add a little bit of red just to turn it more purpley again. And a little bit of our lovely warm grey just to make it a little less harsh. And we should again have a nice darker shade that is just slightly darker than the previous one. And because it's got a hint of brown in it, it just looks a little bit more black. And what this should do is when we zoom out, it should look like this bush or this area of bushes and trees are going to be a lot nearer to the viewer. So we're pushing that mountain back, can you see? And we're bringing this bank a lot further and closer to the viewer. So again, just going to fast forward while I block it in. There's nothing technical. We're just putting solid colour onto an area. So as I say, take your time. Obviously, if I'm fast forwarding areas, it's just what I'm blocking in. But if you go at your own speed, do what's best for you at home. Relax. It's your painting. So all I'm going to do, look, we've got these 3 different colours. And this one's even closer. All I'm going to do, I'm just going to take that colour. I'm just going to block in where we're going to have some wild grass and just some bushes just here. And I'm just going to darken up this corner because this corner is still nearer to the viewer. So I'm just trying to match the sort of underpainting, this sort of shade, because this area will have a bit of dark shade. And what we're going to do, look, we're going to have the line of the road and the mountain all sort of together to draw you into the picture. So we're going to make this colour, which is raw umber brown, and lots of white to create this sort of light, sort of pastel-y brown. And we're going to tiny bit of yellow, so lots of white, a little bit of raw umber brown, a tiny bit of yellow, and we should get this sort of colour. You can add a little bit of orange just to make it warmer, like this colour. So lots of white, some raw umber brown, a dot of yellow and a little bit of orange, and you should get the same colour. I think my brush is just a little bit dirty. And what we're going to do, we're just going to create some gravel just either side of the road. So this could be some loose stones or something. So we're just going to create some gravel either side. And this just creates a little divide between the lovely autumn trees. Let's just curve it round. And our nice road. And again, look, we're just blocking her in. Don't worry if it's scruffy. We just want to sort of take shape. So let's just come down here at an angle. And then we're going to mix a colour for our actual road. So we're kind of going to go to a similar colour that we had before, which is ultramarine blue, some red, and some raw umber brown. And then we're just going to add some of that warm grey. So ultramarine blue, red, raw umber brown, and some warm grey. Just going to make a little bit more blue into the mix. And you can add a tiny bit of white. Now I think my brush has still got some of the previous colour on it. So let's try and get some of that off. But by just adding a little bit more blue, because it's got a hint of red and it's got a hint of raw umber brown, we can make it just a shade darker than these sort of gravelly outlines. There we go. Look, it's just cleaning my brush. I think it still had some of the paint from the old colour. We just want it a shade cooler and a shade darker. And we're just going to block in the tarmac. And it should look like a curved road. And what, hopefully, as I was saying, we'll have the line, the yellow line for the road markings in the middle. And we'll put some highlights on the tip of that mountain in the far distance. And it should get the viewer to look straight down the middle and be lost into our beautiful landscape. So that's the plan. Hopefully it goes that way. So I'm just putting a line in between the divide of the road markings, but we can neaten all that up later once it's dry. We just want to block her in and just gauge all the core colours. So there we go, we've got a blocked in painting. So we've got a lovely sky, we've got our mountains, we've got a far off bank, and we've got a nearer bank, and we've got our road. So let's swap back to our proper brushes and let's put some fine detail on our mountain and create some super realistic mountains. So we're going to mix a colour, and I'm going to use my angled brush again, and we're going to get some cerulean blue and lots of white. And we're going to create a colour just slightly darker than the sky. So let's add a little bit of red to turn it more purpley, more grey. So all we want, look, if that's the sky colour that I'm mixing against, we just want a slightly darker version of that. So I think we need a little bit more white. It's kind of still a bit too dark. So let's put some more white into the mix. Put a big blob, there we go. And we should get a shade darker than the sky. Now the reason we want it quite blue is we're going to create the shadow colour, and then we can put the highlights over the top. So by using this really nice sharp edge brush, look, I can create really fine detail. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave gaps. See how I'm leaving gaps for the darker colour, the underpainting to shine through. And by leaving gaps, it looks like texture in my mountain. It looks like little ridges and sharp edges, cliff tops. So look, all we're doing, we're using this really fine detailed brush to create the illusion of snowy caps on our mountains. Look at that. And because this blue and white is not just sharp white, again, it looks like the sky is reflecting down. The light is the same as the sky. So look at this. It's so easy. But it's the underpainting. It's the shade below that we're leaving the gaps to create the ridges that is tricking your eye. You see that? So let's have some snow on this one. This could be a peak of a mountain peeking through. See how easy this is? So this is what's fantastic about acrylic paints. They're not that expensive. They're very, very forgiving. And you can paint really realistic work. So I hope you're enjoying these tutorials. I hope you find them super useful. Give us a good old like, a thumbs up on the video if you find these tips really helpful. So I'm just blending it with my finger, and I'm going to swap over to another brush. This is a round headed brush, which is super fine detail. Look at the nib on that. Look at that. And what we're going to do, this is going to be absolutely perfect for super sharp detail. We're going to use titanium white, and we're going to have the sunlight coming from the left hand side. So if I zoomed in for you, we've got this beautiful sharp edge brush, and we're just going to get titanium white, and we're going to put all these highlights so it looks like the sun is hitting this snowy area. And by using white over the top, we can make these areas look like they're glistening in the sunlight. And by having a cool colour on the right hand side, it's going to make our mountains look super realistic and 3D. So this brush is fantastic. Really, really good. If you're painting anything that you really, really need sharp detail, things like branches where you really need a fine nib, we need sharp bristles, things like hair, grass. If you're painting portraits, things like eyelashes. So it's really, really good. So look at that. So we've got this really sharp white coming down this left-hand side. And again, look, the white paint is going to absorb into that blue. So it looks bright now, but it's going to naturally blend as it dries. So let's put a little bit of white on this area just so it matches. So again, on the left-hand side. And you can do this trick on anything. So you can have one area in the shade, and you can have one area in the light to be highlighted. So even if it was a tree trunk, you could have one area slightly brighter than the other area. And it just makes your work look 3D. So look at that. Now we've zoomed out. Look, it pushes those mountains back. And it was so easy. So now let's create some awesome trees. And we're going to use different brushes to do that. So I'm going to mix up 3 different shades, and we're going to use autumn colours. So autumn is, or fall in America. We've got these beautiful dying leaves. So we're going to use some orange and raw sienna to create a sort of pumpkin colour. Going to add a little bit of cad yellow and some white, and we should get a lovely sort of autumn leaf colour. We can add a little bit of our warm grey just to take some of the vibrancy out of the colour to make it less cartoony. So warm grey and raw umber are great for sucking colour out of your paints. So if you don't want things to look really cartoony and super bright, you can just add a tad of warm grey or a tad of raw umber, and it takes some of the vibrancy out. So let's get some cad yellow, and we're just going to make a lighter shade, a little tiny bit of cad orange to make it a little bit more golden. Look at that. And a bit of our warm grey, again, look, to suck a bit of the vibrancy out. Just turn it a bit musty, sort of a mustard colour. And let's get some white just to make it less harsh. So we've got an orangey shade and a yellow shade, and I think we need a green. So let's get some chromium oxide green, which is just a sort of subtle green. And we're going to add some yellow to turn it a bit more limeish. So it should look like an olive colour. And we're going to add a little bit of raw sienna, which is basically brown and orange. So if you haven't got raw sienna, you can just add brown and orange. And we're just going to, by doing that, turn it again a bit more fall-like. And just a bit more white to make it more pastel. And let's add a little bit of our grey to suck a bit of the colour out. So we should have a sort of muted pinky orange, a muted yellow, and a sort of creamy green. Can you see that? So we're going to go back to our angled brush, and we're going to use this end to create the illusion of leaves. So again, just like the mountain, where we've left gaps so the underpainting, this blue, can shine through, we're now doing the same And by using this muted green, because we've not got, if I zoom in for you, so look, we've got this lovely brush. So this is the angled brush again. We're going to get loads of green on the end of it. And because this green has been muted, as in it's got lots of white, and we've used grey, it's not that vibrant, and it will absorb some of this blue underneath. So what it should do, just like the mountains, it should make it look far off into the distance. So look, all I'm doing, I'm using the end of the bristles of my brush to create shapes. But I'm leaving gaps so that blue implies shadow. And it just looks like texturized trees. Super, super, super easy. But again, it's the underpainting, the colour that's tricking your eye. So I really hope you're enjoying these videos. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to tag me at Stewart Paintings with your versions of the tutorials. I get sent so many pictures from all around the world. I had someone send me a picture of them doing an art fair with one of my tutorials on their stand, and that really, really cheered me up. All the way from India, and I couldn't believe it, and that really brightened up my day. So it's lovely that people all around the world are watching the videos, and they're really, really helping. Don't forget to please share them on Facebook, and share them with your friends with the YouTube links, because the more people who get to see the videos, the more artists get to learn. So by helping share the videos, you're helping other artists learn for free here on YouTube, which is wonderful. So look, we're truly building up these trees now. I'm just going at a little quicker pace. I'm using the nib of this paintbrush just to create shapes. I'm just trying to create the illusion of trees and bushes. So let's have some over here. But it's always the same technique. Look, I'm leaving gaps to create the illusion of areas in the sun and some areas in the dark. And look, we could even have some long grass. We could have a grassy bank sort of coming up to this gravel. Why not? So let's put in some grass. Now I really like this angle brush, but you can use one of the finer brushes. Something like a rigger brush or a really sharp fine liner if you want to do really detailed grass. But I'm just going to block her in, quite scruffy. So look, just going to create the illusion of grass by pushing up and down with this brush. And let's have it curving all the way. And I'm going to deliberately, look, I'm just going to ease up as I come to this corner so it looks like it's fading off into the distance. See how I did that? So by just having more colour, look, this end, and pushing down hard, I've got a sharper, more paint. And as it curved around the road, I just eased up on the brush so there was hardly any paint. And it just looks like it's fading off. So let's do the same, look, with some really just gently pushing against the canvas just to have the impression of some trees. So we've got these green trees in, and we've got them pushed back. So let's get some of our other colours, because I want it more fall-like, more autumn-like. So let's turn to a filbert brush. So let's just get a different type of nib. And what we're going to do, we're just going to mix up sort of the size of the bushes. So let's get this nice sort of pumpkin colour. And by using the end, look, we can just push down and create shapes. So look at that. So again, look, this orange looks really, really bright. But as it dries, it's going to absorb this lovely sort of purpley blue underneath. So it's going to darken, and it should look very, very autumn-like. But by having variation in your trees, as in colour-wise, having different ones, some orange, some yellow, some green, we're just creating realism. If you think variety is the spice of life, everything is different. You don't see all the trees the same height, all the same colour. So by just creating just different shades, obviously we're just using 3, but you could use all different shades of orange, yellow and green. You just roughly want them to look autumny as in the colours. Just think when the leaves start to die, they all go a bit brown, don't they, and a bit manky. And it's up to you. You can leave. I'm going to cover up quite a lot of this area because I want to teach you how to do lots of things in this tutorial, like branches and stuff. But you can leave some of this blue if you want to create the illusion of shadow. I'm going to cover most of mine up. But if you want to, look, you can leave big chunks of blue, and that will look like areas in the shade. So let's have some leaves coming out here. So can you see now the importance of putting the background on first? So we always start at the back, and then look, we can layer things like leaves and stuff over the top. So now it's covering up a little bit of our mountains, but that's okay. So we're going to have some branches and trees, some tree trunks. But if you went back now and tried to re-put in the mountains, it'd be very, very difficult. So let's have some hanging leaves. We could have some branches, couldn't we, to frame the composition, to frame our painting. So let's have some autumn colours here. I love this time of year. I love when it gets a little bit colder and darker. Especially in Britain, it gets really cold really quick. And not many people like it, but I think it's really, really cool. So there we go. Just building her up. As I say, take your time. Go at your own speed. And any ideas for people? A lot of the tutorials are actual ideas from people. People keep asking me what brushes I use. So obviously it's a nice coincidence that Zen Art Supplies reached out for me and we're doing this collaboration. But if you ever want to know what canvases, brushes, anything like that, they're always in the description box for the videos. So just click on the information on the videos and you can find all links to everything. But please, if you have ideas for tutorials, some of the tutorials now we're making from people's ideas that are reaching out and asking us to cover things. So let's get some of that yellow now. Let's get some of the next shade. Yeah, so people are asking for certain things to be taught, certain scenes. So a lot of people have been asking for things. I think we're going to try to do a stormy thundercloud seascape someone asked for the other day. So any ideas, there's no such thing as a bad idea. Please, please, please put them in the comments below the videos and I will try to make a tutorial on them. So just have a think what you want to learn. So any scenes, I would like to do like a desert scene, something like cactuses and canyons. That'd be really cool. And we could do some waterfalls and we can do lots of different things. So any ideas, please, are very, very welcome. Just put them in the comments below. And I think I'm going to try to do as well some videos on brushes and the different techniques. So obviously I'll try to cover them all in the tutorials, but I think it'd be kind of cool if we just did some shorts, maybe some YouTube shorts or some Instagram reels on different techniques and what brushes to use. So what are the best for trees, what are the best for waves, etc. So there we go, look at this, it's starting to build up. And we're really zoomed in here, so look, it looks all scruffy. Like, that's the great thing about painting on well, it's a bit like life, isn't it? If you zoomed in on the microscope, everything looks chaotic and crazy. Like everything's moving at 1,000 miles an hour. But if you zoom out and you see the bigger picture, it all looks in order and looks fantastic. So this painting, no doubt, looks really, really scruffy now that we're all zoomed in. But like Zen, most things, once you zoom out and you see things from a higher perspective, look at this. It looks all together and it looks really, really cool and natural. So we've got all this texture now. And just before I add some tree chunks, I'm just noticing areas that could use a little bit of TLC. So again, I'm just making these areas a little bit more bobbly, just adding extra leaves just to make them look more realistic. Now we're going to get some of our warm grey, and we're going to add a tiny bit of ultramarine blue to her. I'm just going to make her a little bit darker. So ultramarine blue and our warm grey. And we're going to paint some tree trunks, or the impression of tree trunks. So we're going to swap to a rigger brush. Now look at the bristles on this. Look how sharp this is. This is fantastic for painting things like tree trunks and branches on your trees. So if you ever paint a landscape painting, this brush really makes everything so much easier, because watch, you can just do really, really sharp bristles really, really easily. I've not put any water on my brush, I've just realized. So it's created a sort of a break here on the canvas. So even though, look, I've got lots of paint, it's not running smooth. So look, if we dip her in some water, we load up some paint. Now watch this, look at that. Look how smooth that is just by just wetting the bristles, and you get this super sharp. Look at that. It's like using a really, really fine tip pen or pencil. So it makes your life so much easier. It's like anything in life, if you know what the shortcuts are and the right tools, it just makes your life so much easier. So look, I'm just leaving gaps, look, little gaps, so it looks like the tree trunk is coming through the trees. Let's have a little area here. And all I'm doing, look, I'm just implying areas where there's tree branches. Really, really easy. So just think where you want some branches. So this brush is fantastic. Look at this. Wow. Excuse the focus. I think it's just because my hand is so close to the camera. It's freaking out. I think it's just thinking how awesome this brush is. It's just going, oh my god. Look at this. So look. By laying down all that texture and all that hard work, I know it was time consuming, but now look, we're just putting these little sharp tree trunks in. It's all coming together. So let's have some really far off ones here in the distance. Look at this. Really so easy, look. Now we're going quick because this is a really easy beginner's tutorial, but you can go super realistic. So once you've done these branches, you can always put some trees back over the top, and you can layer this. You could go so finely detailed, but as I say, I just want to cover all the basics for you guys. I don't want to make it too hard. I try to make the tutorials challenging, that they're a little bit uncomfortable for beginners. But the only way to get better at something is to get out of your comfort zone. So hopefully that they are not too hard. I'm just going to make this tree a little bit straighter. Let's make it look like there's two, and this one that's a bit wonky. Always try and make the bottom of your tree a little bit wider than the top to make it look realistic. Yeah, so with the tutorials, always try and make them a little bit harder for beginners. Just a little bit challenging, but hopefully by using all these different brush techniques and ways to do it, you'll see that it's not that hard. And if you have confidence and believe in yourself, you can see that you're capable of anything. So look at this, let's put some branches up here. This brush is awesome, look at this. Do such fine detail. So some tips of trees and branches sticking out. Whee! Let's have one here. Excuse me, hand. It will get out the way in a minute. Look at this. So look, we can have some spindly branches. So this is what I was saying about these types of brushes. Just by having a really sharp brush. Imagine trying to do this with a big clunky brush. It would look awful. So look, by having a really thin brush, you can just make these branches look so cool. So we've got all this sort of area blocked in. We've got all our trees, and we've got our texture, and we've got some branches. Let's block in this area and do the same. We're going to use more vibrant colours. Where we've got the muted colours to push this area back, look, they're all quite muted. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to make these colours like this, much brighter, and that should bring them forward. So again, we're going to swap to another type of brush, and we're just going to go more to an angled brush again, because it's got a bigger nib. And we're just going to get some sap green, and we're just going to create sort of diagonal streaks, and we're going to kind of create sort of like pine leaves. So think of something like a Christmas tree. So I'm just thinking of things like a Christmas tree, and I'm just create these diagonal sort of pines that come down. And again, we're going to do the same sort of principle. We're using sap green because it's a lot darker, and we add a little bit of our warm grey, just to mute her, and a little bit of ultramarine blue. We're just going to create these sort of diagonals, and these can sort of be the fir trees or pine trees sticking out. But we're going to have a variation of colours again, just to mix it up and keep it spicy. So by having greens and oranges and things like that, we can make it look texturized. So let's get some sap green, some ultramarine blue to make a dark shade. Let's have a pine tree. So I used this sap green and ultramarine blue colour originally, but I think it's a little bit too dark. It looks quite cool now while we're filming it, but I think when it dries, acrylics always dry darker. I think it's going to look a little bit too dark. So if you're painting along at home, I change it later, but I thought I'd give you a heads up now. If you just add a little bit more grey to the mix, so a little bit of white to the mix, and just make it a little bit lighter in shade. I think because it's a bit too dark, it's bringing it a bit too close. But all I'm doing, if you think of a top of a Christmas tree, I'm just making the tops look really spindly. And let's have one over here, just so it looks like some pine trees sticking out. So again, trying to have a variation in trees just gives the viewers something to look. So it all looks scruffy now. Let's have a pine tree sticking out. But we can layer it, and we can put some of these trees over the top. So there we go. Excuse the focus when it zooms in on my bruised hand. And they're bruised because I do martial arts. Nothing weird. So look, I think you see how dark that looks? So I think if you make those trees, I think there's too much sap green. Sap green is very, very dark. Hence the fact that the chromium oxide green is just a lighter shade. Now that's good here on the left, because a lot of that is going to be in the shade. But I think it's just a little bit too dark. So you can always light it up with a bit of warm grey. So let's get some raw sienna brown. So raw sienna is just orange and brown. And we're going to add some ultramarine blue to it. And a little bit of warm grey. We should get sort of a crimsony, dark crimson. There we go. It's like a reddy brown. And again, look, we're just going to create the illusion of trees sticking out. So we just want all these dark shades first, and then we can put some highlights over the top. We can neaten everything up. But if you think, like, we're painting a pretty realistic landscape painting in just over an hour that you can be really, really proud of, you know, you can use for a gift for someone, and even for yourself, like by watching people like myself and some other fantastic artists here on YouTube, You can learn all this for free, and you can get skills in painting, and then apply all these lessons to your own landscapes. So again, look, sorry about the focus. I really shouldn't zoom in so much, should I? My drunk camera. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just putting texture, leaving gaps again. And as I say, it looks really, really scruffy all zoomed in, but don't worry. So let's add some orange to the mix to make it a little bit lighter. So I'm just adding cad orange to our mix to get a dark orange. Let's do the same again. So let's create sort of these pine needles sort of sticking out. So just try to have them random all over the shop. You can use thick paint like me to create lots of splodges. But you just want a variety of different colours. So just build her up slowly. Again, sorry about the focus. My forte is not really in video editing, as you can see. But I think my videos are pretty good compared to what they used to be. If you ever want to laugh, go back and watch my very first videos. They are shockingly bad. But what is really, really cool, I always try to leave them up here on YouTube because I'm trying to show people, someone like me, who's a very busy artist. I was in art galleries all this week, and I also teach art. And if I can do all this, even though it's bad, you can all do this at home. So there's nothing you can't learn. There's nothing you can't do, especially in today's day and age where you've got your phone and everything like that. And you can learn all this for free. It's fantastic. So look, we've built up this area. So we're covering all the orange and these autumn-like colours. So I'm happy with all this. This looks starting to look really, really pretty. But I think we need another colour, don't we? I think we need some yellow. So let's add some yellow to the mix. Let's make a gold. Let's make a golden yellow. So a big dollop of yellow, please, into your orange mix. And we should get this lovely sort of gold colour. So let's add a little bit of white just to make it less harsh. And let's see. Wow, look at this. This is super vibrant. So what we're doing, we're making all the colours here look much more vibrant because they're closer to the viewer. And what it should be doing, if you now look to the right, all the mountain and all the right hand side looks more bleached. It looks further back. So again, by having darks to have in your underpainting, and then by having more vibrant colours in the foreground, what you're doing is bringing things closer to you. So this trick, again, you can use for anything, even if you're painting something completely different. If you just remember, you want things in the foreground to have a darker shadow, and you want the colours to be brighter, and things in the distance, you want to mute them and make them look more pastel. So let's have some bright orange up here. We've got that bright yellow. So let's have a nice contrast with some bright orange. So again, we just got areas, some in the sunlight, some in the shade. So by having all these variations, we could just texturize her. And I know it's slow. And I know it's a bit tedious. If you're watching at home, I presume people are fast forwarding, but this is the only way to do it. So by just taking your time, like none of this is hard. So as I say, it's perfect for beginners who want to learn acrylic painting. It just takes a little bit of patience. And I don't know about you, I find painting extremely relaxing. It keeps me grounded. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world, which is really, really sad and distracts you a lot of the time. And it takes you out of your comfort zone. So by being grounded and doing something in the here and now, which is very zen, it's really, really good to keep you out of your own mind. So I'm just going to get some of that warm grey. Let's do a big tree trunk here. Now I think it's just a little bit too light in colour. So let's do a big tree trunk, but I think it's a little bit too light. So we'll darken her up in a minute. Let's just block her in first. So what I want to do, I want to create a big tree, just so the viewer's got something to focus on. So there we go, got a big tree trunk. And all I've done is I've done the trick where I've got some bits going behind the leaves and some bits in front. And I'm just going to put a little bit, let's put a little bit of blue and brown either side. Let's just have another tree just here. So I'm just putting some tree trunks. And I'm deliberately going behind the leaves. You see how I'm doing that? I'm just leaving gaps. So it looks like the leaves are coming from. And I'm going to swap back to my rigger brush. This really, really sharp brush. And I'm just going to do some really, really skinny ones here. Look at that. This brush is wicked. Look at this. Look. I'm just leaving gaps so the leaves... So it looks like it's poking in and out between the leaves. Give these really thin tree trunks some branches. Look at this. Having the right brush really, really makes things easier. Look at these. This is so cool. Wow. Got to film this for the gram. So don't forget, when part of painting, it's not just enjoying it, it's showing other people what you can do. So I think social media is a bit of a double-edged sword. Some parts of me hate it because everyone compares themselves to other people, but other part of me thinks it's a fantastic and free way to promote yourself and promote your skills and your artwork. So that's what I do on YouTube and Instagram, and hopefully it cheers you all guys up and it helps me support my brand, but also it gives you something for free, so it's a win-win situation. So don't forget, when you're doing things, to film it, to take pictures, show people what you can do. So this tree I think is a little bit too light. Let's get some blue and some raw umber brown and just add it to our warm grey. And look, we're just going to darken it up. So blue and brown is just cooler. So by just adding it to the left hand side of the tree, look, I can just make the tree look more 3D. I've just left gaps in the original warm grey. And look, we can even make some really sharp branches again. They're just nice and dark to make them more prominent. So if you want to make things look sharper and more noticeable, just use a darker colour and this fantastic brush just to get, look at these sharp edges. So this is what I'm saying to you, having a really thin brush, and especially trying to do really detailed work, it just does it all for you. We can even darken up the shadows in between. Let's go back to our angle brush, which is a bit chunkier. And look, we can even add some little leaves over the top. So now we've put in some of those tree trunks, we can hide it back again by just putting some leaves over the top. So don't be afraid to change things up. Look, we can have some bushes coming down here towards the gravel. As I say, you can go as detailed as you want to. Some people have got lots of patience, some people find it really difficult. And you don't always have to paint this in one sitting, you can always do it in stages. So if you find it difficult, you can always stop it, do 20 minutes, come back to it another day. So let's put some leaves just hanging over the top here. This is looking awesome. So I really like this blocked in area, and I really liked this area. And the sky is looking really cool. So why don't we get some more sky colour? We get our clean brush. So I've just got a clean angle brush here. And what I'm going to do, look, with the nib, because the nib is really thick, I'm just going to poke sky holes. Now it really helps if your painting is dry to do this. So if you dry your painting with a hairdryer before you attempt to do this, because otherwise you're going to mix sky blue with orange and the branch colours. But all I'm doing is I'm poking holes of the daylight in between the leaves. Look. And this is going to create realism. Can you see how that's working? It just makes my trees look more realistic because it looks like bits of the sky are poking through it. It's a little trick. So once you've got all that blended background and you've got all the detail, now by just mixing up some white and cerulean blue, we can just poke these sky holes in between the leaves and make her look hyper realistic. And again, this is not hard. Look, this, because this brush has got this big chunky nib for its bristles, it is absolutely perfect for this. You just push and it just creates these lovely rounded holes. Look at that. Look at this. This is so easy. But it really, really helps that the paint's dry because you don't smudge anything. So it's always handy to have a hairdryer. I've got no hair, but I borrow my wife's hairdryer and I give it a zap before I do this. Or you can just let it air dry for 5 minutes. But again, just take your time. There's no rush. But you see those trees now on the left? Look how much more real they look. So let's do a few on the right. Obviously, you're going to have that mountain and covering it up, so you're not going to see much sky. So let's get some brown and some ultramarine blue. So raw umber brown and ultramarine blue to create a really dark colour. So add a tiny bit of red, tiny bit of cad red, and a tiny bit of raw sienna. We should get a nice cool brown. And we're just going to darken up some of the shadows here on the left in between some of the trees. So just like we've done with the sky holes, where we've got little gaps, I'm just going to darken up the shadows. So I don't want to use black because black is really cartoony. So by mixing ultramarine blue, raw umber, tiny bit of red and tiny bit of raw sienna, I've got a very dark shadow colour, but it's not jet black. It's not going to look cartoony. And all I'm going to do, I'm just making these shadows look harsher. And again, that just brings it closer towards the viewer. Makes it look nearer to me. And I can even do that to cast some shadows here on this bank. So this could be a grassy bank before the gravel. And let's get some yellow. Oh god, my brush is dirty. Some more yellow. Shh. And some chromium oxide green to create like a lime green. So yellow and chromium oxide green, and you should get a lime sort of green. More yellow than green, please. And we're just going to block in this area. So this is all areas of the grass getting a bit of sunlight. It's peeking out through these dark shadows. Again, we're just leaving some gaps for that dark colour to shine through, so it looks like terrain. So look, again, just leave little gaps. It looks texturized. It's always the same tricks. And then let's get some sap green. And let's just make some green areas on the top bit, so that looks like some shadow from the trees. Because if you think, some of the leaves and things will be hanging over. And then let's just get some orange, and that looks like a row of dead leaves sort of sitting in between the road and the grass. You get sort of all the mucky leaves that sort of blow from the road onto the ridges. I think it's a little bit too bright, so I'm just going to mix it a little bit there. And then let's get some of our dark colour that we mixed up. And let's just put some shadows in this side. And let's just give this bank a little bit of a shadow. So again, look, this corner is going to be closer to the viewer. But as the road curls on, I want to make it look further. So I'm darkening up this corner. But I don't really want to go much further towards the middle, because I want to keep it that lighter under blue that's shining through between the leaves, and then it will look like it's fading off towards that mountain. So as I said earlier, if you want to bring things closer, you just got to darken it, and if you want to push things back, you just got to lighten it. So look, even this ridge, we can just fill in these gaps with my sharp brush here. So again, having the right brush to go in between the gaps and just colour them in almost. Look, I'm just colouring in the areas of blue in this darker shade. But I don't want to go too far left. Let's just go back to my angle brush and put in a few more little holes. She's all coming together. Painting always comes together right at the end. So don't fret. So I'm putting a little bit of holes, but there's really a mountain there, so it's not really working, but never mind. Who cares about reality? Let's just do what we want to do. So there we go. So let's make a little ridge here between the tree and the mountain. So let's swap back to our really fine brush here that we used earlier, and let's get some of that darker shade. So this is the brush that we used for the top of the mountain, and because it's so thin and sharp, it's like a proper fine liner. It's wonderful for doing really, really fine detail. So if we just outline where these leaves have fallen, look at that. Look how sharp that is. So you can create really good detail just having a really, really sharp brush. So I'm just putting little holes in. Shadow cast down from those trees and leaves. Just neatening things up. As I say, we don't want to go too detailed. So we can just sharpen this area up. Some of the grass. So then we're going to swap back to an angle brush, and then we're going to get some white and some cerulean blue. And the great thing about this angle brush, because it's got this rounded nib, watch this, we can do quite chunky lines, and this could be the road markings. So I'm just pushing down using this chunky nib, and then I can get some nice straight road markings. I'm a bit shaky there. But try to go as straight as you can. We can always neaten them up afterwards. It is hard to do this, so don't beat yourself up if it goes wrong. You can always have a baby wipe or a wet bit of kitchen roll or tissue to wipe it away if it does go wrong. But this brush, because it's got the rounded nib, look, if I just push down really, really hard, I can get a nice imprint. And then if I just ease up as the road curls, I kind of want it curling round with the road. So I want it to fade off. So look, I'm getting thinner as we go off. And I'm just going to deliberately use my finger to smudge it. And then let's get some of that yellow we use for the trees. So yellow and a tiny bit of orange. Just a tiny bit to make it more golden. And we can do the same. I'll just clean my brush with the road markings. So the line that goes right down the middle, we're going to have it really thin here at the top. And then we're going to thicken it up as it comes nearer to create perspective. So again, just pushing down hard with the nib of this brush. And then let's do the same. We'll have it curled round here. Push, push, push. And then imprint the line. Try to get it as straight as I can. And then just have it curl round. There we go. And then you can always mix up a little bit of grey. Look, and just neaten everything up with your sharper brushes. So you can always change back to a more finer brush. Or if you find a thicker brush easier, it's up to you. But all I'm doing, look, I'm just going round the edges and just trying to neaten everything up. Just there's a little bit of a divide between the road and the gravel. Look, so I'm just going round the edge. Just making sure there's that divide to make that road marking stand out. And if there's any bit of your canvas that you've missed or anything, just getting some brown and white, more white than anything. Let's add a bit of orange. So raw umber and white, but I think it's a bit too pale, so we can add a bit of orange in a minute. And again, I'm just going to leave some gaps to create the illusion of gravel. So these could be all little stones and pebbles by the roadside. Get like a dirt trail sort of before the bank. And again, we're just going to have it fade off. So let's add a little bit more orange, there we go, just to warm her up. And let's just fade her out into the distance. So again, look, same trick, leaving gaps to texturize it. And let's get some of that grey and just put a little divide in the middle. There we go. Oops, got a chunk here of paint. And then last but not least, we're just going to get our super thin rigger brush. And we're just going to do some fine detail on our branches. So I'm just using some raw umber brown, tiny bit of ultramarine blue. And look at this. Look, this is what I was saying to you. Look how sharp this brush is. So I can do almost hair-like branches coming off it. Super quick. And it's not that I'm super good, it's because the brush is super good. It's making my job so much easier because that brush is so thin. So trying to do that with a big brush would just be a nightmare. It would all smudge. So look, I'm just putting in some of these really sharp branches. Now we've got everything how we want it. You could just add some of the detail. You can even elongate your pine trees to make them look more realistic. I still think those two palm trees to the left just look a bit too dark, don't you think? They're coming too far forward because they're too dark. It's bringing them forward. So I think we should lighten them up. just finish these branches. So look, all I've done, I've got some grey and some green, and I've just lightened them up. So I just got some chromium oxide green and some of that warm grey. I just mixed the two together, and I just went over the top. Look, just went over the top because they're nice and dry. I just literally coloured them in, and again, it just brings them. It just pushes them back. Excuse me. And it doesn't bring them too harsh. And you can also do this. Look, now we've put in some of those branches. Look, you can even just put a little bit of orange on the top of them, just to again push back those trees. Look, by just having some leaves over the top, it just pushes back some of those palm trees to make them finished. And I think she's all done. So I've signed her in the bottom left hand corner. So you've learned how to push back your sky with the wispy clouds, how to push back your mountain using pastel colours and add highlights and shadows to create realism, how to create these beautiful autumn leaves and again push that back using pastel colours, and then how to texturise them and paint tree trunks and branches over the top. We've got these lovely hanging branches that we used a fine liner from, and then we've got this nearer bank with more vibrant colours and harsher shadows. And we've obviously learned how to put sky holes to create realism. And we've got our beautiful road in the middle to give you a central point to look straight towards that mountain. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you so much for Zen Art Supplies for sponsoring the video. You can pick these beautiful fine line miniature brushes up on the link in my description. So go and check out Zen Art Supplies. They are absolutely fantastic brushes, and I've really enjoyed using them. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much everyone for sharing the videos and liking them. We really love the support, and it's thanks to you that the channel is doing so well, so thank you very much. There are over 160 painting tutorials, all step by step, so go and binge, go and learn whatever you want, and any comments, please put forward ideas of things you want to learn. Take care guys, and happy painting. See you soon. Bye.